get going. So good morning, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us for our May webinar. If you're new to the webinars, this is our monthly session where we try to go through parts and capabilities within VIRL, hopefully to help you get more productive, help you get more use out of the system. In previous webinars, if you haven't joined before, previous webinars we've covered new capabilities, new functionality. We've had some case studies from people showing others what they've been doing with VIRL, how they use VIRL. So today we have, as usual, members of the development team standing by on the panel right now. So they're there for you. If you want to pose questions, please do so. We will try and get through those questions as we progress through the webinar today. And we'll do our best, if we don't get answers for you, to try to follow up after the webinar. Okay, so this month's webinar, following feedback and some input from yourselves, we're doing something slightly different. We're actually going to go at a slower pace than we normally do and try and go through the simulation lifecycle, literally going from zero, building up a topology, and taking it right the way through from design, through configuration, to the point where we bring the simulation up, working with that simulation, saving the configurations, and shutting down. So a bit of a beginner's tutorial, but we hope that even if you're not a beginner, you'll still find something useful in the material that we're going to be covering. So my colleague Tom is going to be kicking that off in a moment and be helping him with that. Following on, we've got an interview. So Scott Anderson, some of you may have met Scott at events like CiscoLive and others. As you'll hear, he may have tortured some of you in the past, perhaps. And we're going to be talking about how Learning at Cisco, one of the divisions within Cisco, is using virtualization as part of their portfolio, and also some suggestions from Scott about how you can use systems like VIRL for your own certification training, or just keeping up on the education side. We're going to be talking a little bit about the new virtual machine images that we released recently, a quick cover of what you can expect from VIRL at CiscoLive coming up very, very soon, just over 2 weeks away now, or no, just under 2 weeks away, and then, of course, try and do Q&A. Okay, so QA panel is up and running. Please do post questions, and we're going to get things underway. And I'm going to hand over to, well, actually, we're going to take a look at a simulation lifecycle. So in a minute, Tom's going to take us through the design piece. But what we were doing is, well, let's take a look at a topology. For many people, it is literally, I'm going to scribble something down on the back of a napkin, or maybe a piece of paper. Depends on what it is. Maybe you've got a whiteboard. And it kind of looks a little bit like this. A bunch of boxes, a bunch of circles, a bunch of lines, some basic connectivity, and I'm kind of getting the theory of what I want to try and realize if I'm going to take this, back of the napkin design and actually convert it into something that's actually useful. So what we're going to do in this walkthrough is literally take that design you see here and convert that in. So going to hand over to my colleague Tom, who's going to take us through that design stage. Tom, over to you.
Thanks, Joel. I'm going to, so we're going to, first we need to draw this topology in via Maestro, which is the user interface for VIRL. So we're not going to show drawing the entire thing, since drawing lines between little boxes is actually kind of the easy part, but we'll do sort of starting from this skeleton and kind of build out the rest of the pieces, just so you get a flavor for that. And then we'll focus on sort of the iterative configuration building piece. So if you looked at that topology, you saw that, we have a couple host nodes on the far left, and then a few switches, and a couple routers as we go out from, from our network out through the distribution and core to the WAN edge. So on the far left, we have the host nodes. In VIA Maestro, you see here on the left side, the palette. Each node has a different type here. So for the host nodes, we just picked a server node. Those are basically Ubuntu Linux. By default, that's an Ubuntu Linux image. And for the switch nodes, we have a choice of either IOSV L2 image or an unmanaged switch. So the unmanaged switch is just sort of a dumb layer 2 switch. It has no configuration. It doesn't actually run as a VM. It just sort of passes all traffic through. The IOSV L2 image, so for these nodes here, as we get into the distribution side of the network, we've set these up as IOSV L2 images. Those are the virtualized version of iOS with the L2 functionality added, and those these 4 nodes here are set up as those virtual machines. So they take configs. We can set their their iOS configuration and tweak some features there, which we'll be doing in a moment. And then as we get out to the right side of this network, these are routers, and we have some choices there. For the core part of the network, we've set those as virtualized iOS, so IOSV nodes here, and then the WAN side, it's iOS XR nodes. And so even just from this starting point, we can for any of these nodes, like I said, they all take a configuration. So down here in the properties view below the editor, if I click on the configuration tab, this is the well, I can start with a blank one. This is a configuration that you start with, which would be blank. So if you go through these nodes, there's no configuration associated. When we launch this simulation, they'll all come up just with the default configs on those boxes. So even from this point, we can take that and generate these configurations. There's a button here just to the left of the launch simulation on the toolbar. You see the tooltip says build initial configs. So when we click that, that's going to call out to a component that's included with VIRL called AutoNetKit. AutoNetKit will process this topology, generate configurations based on whatever we currently have in the topology, and generate those configs. It also, I'm going to disable this first option. We're not going to look at the diffs. We can see the diffs between runs if we want. I'm going to shut that off for now, but I am going to show the visualization. AutoNetKit also generates this visualization pane. I'm going to drag this up into the editor. So I'm just going to grab that tab and drop it up here so we have a little more room to look at it. And we get a different, another view of this topology where AutoNetKit can show us, basically what it's doing when it generates this to these configurations. So for example, if I look at the OSPF view, all of these nodes are still currently in the same OSPF area. So if you looked at that topology that Joe showed earlier, the idea was to put the nodes here on the left into one OSPF area, and the node, the routers off to the right in a different OSPF area. So now we're going to start iteratively changing the topology. The first step here is to finish out that piece to the right. So we're going to add another switch here to the right. In this case, we're just going to use an unmanaged switch. We don't really need to do any complex configuration there, so I'm not going to choose a IOSV L2 image. We'll just make it an unmanaged switch. There is also in that topology access to the outside. So this simulation is going to run entirely self-contained in my VIRL VM, but I can also punch out to the external network if I want to connect this to a lab or to some test gear. And we can do that with these external nodes here. So we're going to use a flat L2 connector. So I just click on that node and drop it into the topology. And then since I'm connecting out to the external network, let's put a firewall in between. So I'm going to choose an ASAP-based firewall. So just click that node from the palette. And again, in the editor, just drop that node. And then I can connect these up. In the palette, I would click the Connect tool. And then you can see I've got a little arrow icon here to show me I'm connecting lines between these. So I just click on one node and click on the next node to create those. Default, we auto-create interfaces in VMaestro for you. That behavior can be overridden, which we've shown in one of our other videos. We also have some standard drawing tools, such as, if you don't like things to be all jaggedy, you can align these nodes. And so there we go, adding sort of nodes and connections to the topology. So I'm going to generate configurations again, because now we have new nodes here, like this ASAV node has no configuration. So now when I click Generate Configs again, now I have, let me go back to design view for a second. Now I have on this ASAV node a configuration generated by AutoNetKit again. And I can look again in the AutoNetKit visualization view. And like I said, we still have these things all in one OSPF area, so let's go ahead and change that. So we can do a lot of this config straight in AutoNetKit just by setting, for example, in this Properties tab. So select the node, and in the Properties tab, we have an AutoNetKit property page. And here I can set some properties such as the OSPF area. And I'm going to set that for both of these server nodes. Save the file and regenerate that configuration. And now we're going to get a configuration from AutoNetKit that will put those two server nodes into a different OSPF area. We wait a moment, and then we're going to go look at the visualization view again. And now when we look at the OSPF view, whoa, okay. So this is part of the point of the AutoNetKit. When we throw these in, we then visualize the OSPF area. When I hover on this one, we see area 3.0.0.3. On the other server node, I must have fat fingered and not actually entered it. I also see that I forgot to throw my IOSV nodes into that area. So we're going to come back, and this server node is in that OSPF area. This one I did not actually set, 3.0.0.3. And then I set also these IOSV nodes. I can actually select multiple nodes at once, and then come in here and enter the area. So now if I save that topology and generate the configs again, now we can again use the visualization view to check the OSPF area. That's now looking correct. I've got the elements on the left side here in OSPF area 3003, and the ones on the right in the default OSPF area 0. Okay, so that's the OSPF settings, tweaking that. The other thing to notice here, we've already pre-configured this, but if I look at, say, a connection between two nodes, so the server node and the IOSV L2 node, for example, if I select that connection, you can see that in the node editor, I can see exactly which interfaces are connected in this connection from the server to IOSV2 L3, IOSV L2-3. If I select the interface itself, the properties view is now showing me the properties of that interface. So if I look on the AutoNetKit tab, I see that I have a VLAN. We've entered a VLAN previously associated with this interface. So same thing on this server node, the server node 2. If I select that one and select his interface, his VLAN is set to 20. So I have VLAN 10 set on the interface up here on server 1, VLAN 20 for server 2. And similarly on these IOSV, on the IOSV instances here in the core, I've set the VLAN tags on their interfaces. So coming through from this connection into GigE01, we've got VLAN 10 set, and then across from the other side to GigE02, I've got VLAN 20 set. And we can see this in the configuration in the AutoNetKit visualization. If we look at the layer 2 connectivity, I'm going to just drag this so it's a little more obvious. We can see that sort of the L2 devices are kind of dropped out. I've got the server node, iOS V1, and then this is the VLAN 10 and VLAN 20 represented in that visualization. And in fact, if I kind of hover over those the VLANs, if I just leave that on the visualization view, sort of the nodes that are unrelated fade out. So we see that the nodes that are not tagged to carry that VLAN 10, like the server node on the left, is not part of VLAN 10, so that just fades out into the background. So it makes it very easy to see in this visualization view sort of where I've set those tags and how those configs are generated. And we can check that in the configs themselves. For example, on the IOSV L2 node, if I look at the configuration that was generated, I have to scroll down to the right interface. but we can see that the connection back here to the server node was set on gig E01 to be switch port access VLAN 10. Right. So AutoNetKit will automatically configure those interfaces properly for carrying VLAN traffic. Finally, let me see the other piece. Oh, the other piece that we have here is, of course, the ASAV node. If we look at his interfaces, we'll see that interface gig E01, gig E00, they're both set to security level 0. In general, we like to set separate security policies on the inside interface versus the outside interface. So I can click on, again, if I look at that connection coming in from the inside, I click on the interface, the inward-facing interface of that ASAV node. I can set a security level on that interface, and then generate the configurations again. There's not much to visualize at this layer, but we can certainly check that ASAV node now, if I scroll down and look at his internal facing interface, he's now had a security level set to 100 on that interface. And then finally, we're doing an external connection here. So we'd like to make sure that the IOSXR-V nodes broadcast that route through to the outside network to the rest of the network that we've just configured. So by default, the configuration just, it's configured our interfaces, it's set up, any, OSPF configuration, if we've set up BGP, whatever, it's all kind of configured on those nodes. But something like those default routes are kind of hard to sort of auto-detect, decide that we want those in here. So what we're going to do is select, so first we look at the ASAV interface. We'd like to tell everyone inside the network that, this interface here is going to be the one where we're going out. So if I look at its interface properties, so again, I select that connection, select that interface itself in the node editor. This is the interface kind of on the way out. And if I look in the properties view for that interface, this is the address, 10.0.0.9. So let me grab, so the external network is 116 or 172.16.10. We've kind of set that up previously in VIRL. So we want to make sure that the IOSXR-V nodes broadcast that static route. So in here on the IOSXR-V node, I select that node, and in the properties view in AutoNetKit, if I scroll down, there's a block of custom configuration. So this is where if you're using AutoNetKit and you'd like to tweak what it's generating, but you'd still like to use AutoNetKit, you have the opportunity to add, your custom stanzas, either sort of globally at the top level of the config, or, on each physical interface, or in the OSPF configuration. So, there's a stance you can insert sort of at various points in the generated configuration. So in here, we're going to paste that static route. We're going to do that on IOSXR-V2 also. Scroll down to the global config, paste that in there, save that file. And now when AutoNetKit generates the configuration, if I look at the config, for example, on IOSXR-V2, and scroll down a little bit, we'll see that it's inserted that at the top of the configuration for us. So this way we can tweak that config a little bit and still use AutoNetKit. Now we can, if we decide that there's certain things that AutoNetKit doesn't support that we want to put in our configuration, or if we just wanted to use AutoNetKit to sort of get most of the way there, and then we kind of know what we want from then on, we can certainly come in here. This is just a configuration. It's just a text block, so we can certainly edit this by hand. So I could come in here and add my own config stanzas. And if I just simply don't click Build Configurations again, whatever changes I made will be saved. In fact, if I want to make sure that I don't overwrite any of these nodes configurations again, I can select all the nodes, except the flat ones don't really have configs on them. I can select all the nodes, and here in the AutoNetKit pane, I can disable, I can uncheck this auto-generate the configurations for these nodes. So that way, even now, if I accidentally click the generation button, the configs won't be overwritten. And at this point, they're all up to me. Whatever I put in this configuration is what we'll have. So I can start with what AutoNet gets generated, get me most of the way there, and then edit these configs if I want, and simply, disable that config generation on each node, and then I no longer have to run the build auto build the configurations button anymore. So at this point, I've got the topology basically where I want it. I like the visualization; it looks correct. The layer 2 looks fine. The OSPF now looks fine. I've set up my security level level on the ASAV nodes. I've added the the custom configuration to get the routes added at the top of the configs for the IOSXR-Vs. So at this point, I'm happy with this. I'm going to go ahead and launch the simulation. That's the green play button here on the toolbar. So if I press that, VMaestro will take this topology and all the configurations we just entered. They'll send those to the back end. You'll get a confirmation dialog. And by default, VMaestro will try to switch you to this other perspective. That's just so that we get a separate arrangement of the views. We don't really need the properties view so much anymore. And our focus switches here to the simulations view. So most of the interaction that we're going to do in the current version of VMaestro now will be in the simulations view. And you can see that this simulation, the SwitchLab simulation, is starting to come up. And as these devices get launched and booted and the configurations loaded, they'll start going to active, and then eventually, once they're fully loaded, I can log into them and start working on them. So I'm going to hand over now to Joel. Ready, Joel?
Thank you very much, Tom. Okay. All right, so we're going to pick up from where Tom left off. So just going to file. Okay, so in the best traditions of live television, here's one I did earlier, or rather, here's the simulation that we fired up earlier. The same topology that you saw that Tom was just walking us through. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, great, we've done all that configuration work. You've seen Tom go through and add in some custom elements here and there to generate the configuration, and then also splicing in the that additional static route on the XRV1 and XRV2 instances. But of course, that's only the beginning. Now we actually want to do some proper work with our environment. So that's what we're going to take a look at here. So we've got the environment. It's all up and running. We've got our list of nodes. We can the list here. So first of all, we're going to take a look at the ASAV instance here. Hopefully people can see that. So there we've got the prompt. So we're just going to go into enable mode. And I'm going to do show IP address. Okay, so the syntax for the ASAV is slightly different from other routers. So if you take a look at iOS or XR instances, the command configurations are slightly different. But here we can see the IP address that Tom mentioned earlier. There it is, 10.0.0.9. That's been injected onto our inside interface, so pointing towards the unmanaged switch. And we can also see that there is that outside IP address, so the 172.16.1, in this case 119. So that's pointing to our outside world over on that flat network. So we can see inside IP addresses, we can see outside IP addresses, and we can also see here is our management context with its own separate IP address in there. Okay, so we're now going to take a quick look at the IOSV instance. So the ASA is a firewall. It's a security device. So there's a certain amount of configuration that we need to be able to do just regular operations. So for example, if I now do just a straight ping of the IP address, 10.0.0.9, so we're going from IOSV1 up here, sending the ping across to the ASAV, and hopefully we're seeing the replies come back. And, oh, we don't see anything. Well, that's actually expected because there's a certain amount of configuration work that we have to actually do on the ASAV to actually get it set up so that it will actually respond. Okay, so we're going to flip back to the ASAV. We're going to go into the config mode, again, conf-t, just like you've seen before. And we're going to add a series of commands in here. So first of all, a NAT statement, basically saying I'm going to set up to do translation. we're then...
So there was a command if you can make the window bigger because it's very small. So can you maximize or increase the font size?
You mean increase the font size? Let me see. Can we increase the font size? Yes, we should be able to. One moment.
Okay. I was going to say on the terminal view itself, the little AA is kind of what you wanted, I think.
Right. Thank you very much. There we go. Okay. So we want to edit that.
Yep.
Let's go for, let's try 14 point. Come on, what's it doing? Apply. How's that? Is that better for people? I'll take silence as a yes. Okay, so we've entered that NAT statement. Now we're going to put a couple of route entries. So again, slightly different syntax from what we've seen before. So we've got to be very careful with what we're doing here. Okay, so we're putting two route entries in place. Remember, this is running with static routes. So what we're doing is we're pointing a static route back towards XRV1 and back towards XRV2. Okay, so this device is not actually using OSPF. All right, so we're having to use static routes. So we can send traffic in the one direction. We need to be able to return that traffic. Okay, so we're back on iOS v1. Let's try pinging now. And there we go. Okay, so we got success because now the ASAV understands how to return those packets that are coming back. So we're making progress. Right. We want to be able to extend connectivity all the way back down into the core of our network, or actually down onto the server sitting over all the way on the... So you'll recall that Tom put in place on the XRV1 and the XRV2 a static route advertising the network that's sitting over here on the flat one, so the one network. But there's a little more configuration that's actually required to make that really work. So we're going to go in, we're going to take just move that panel up here. Going to log in. So we can see the static route. So if we take a look at the route table, there's the static route that's present, so 172.16.10. But if we take a look on the iOS V instance and take a look at the route table here, the 172 network is not present because we haven't redistributed. So we're going to go into our configuration on the XRV instances, turn on route, the redistribution, and then we'll see that route getting flooded down. Okay, and we're going to commit. We're going to do the same on the XRV2. Pop that up there. And again, pop those, conf T, That's better, right. Pop those entries in, redistribute. Okay, so with that now in place, if we now take a look at the routing table, we should see, there it is. So 172.16.10 now coming through from two different route entries, route sources. So if we take a look at the details of that, so we can see it's an external OSPF entry. We can see the forwarding metric associated with it, and then we can see each one of those sources. And obviously, we've selected the best path. We can see the asterisk identifying the best path. So if we now try pinging to an outside IP address, and there's a target IP address already sitting out there on the end of that network, and this is actually a special IP address that sits on the VIRL server itself. If we now ping, so that's actually traffic coming from iOS v1, passing through one of these two routers. We don't know which one. Well, it would select the best path across the unmanaged switch through the ASA out onto that flat network, and obviously the ICMP echo reply coming back through the network and coming through. So that's basically showing that that functionality is working. But on the ASAV itself, there's a nice little command that you can use to see that translation taking place. So if we use the command show xlate, there we go. So this is a timed entry. So you'll see these entries appear and disappear. But here we can see there is the source IP address of those packets. We can see the translation that's taking place. So it's to its outside address. And then obviously, that will sit there for a period of time. If we run that command again, it'll eventually time out and disappear. So we've got that configuration working. We have connectivity at least down to the router layer, but we need to extend this all the way down to the server layer. So we're just going to go that a little bit further down. Now, obviously, these are Linux servers, as Tom pointed out. They're just standard Linux servers, nothing particularly fancy on here. So they're not running any routing protocol. We don't have a routing stack, a protocol stack actually on here. But what we do have are static route entries. And one of the nice things that AutoNetKit does for us is put in place a whole series of static routes. Oops, netstat. Thank you very much, netstat-rn. So we can see all the various static route entries that are getting added in for us. So these are being generated. They're part, and you can see that in the configuration that gets generated. They are part of the config that gets presented when that virtual machine actually comes up. Now, what we want to do is we're actually going to do something slightly different. We're actually going to say a default route. So imagine that on the other side of our flat one is our outside world. So we're going to delete the default gateway entry that we have here, and we're going to replace it. So first, we're going to remove that entry. And the password is just Cisco, so that's the default gateway gone. And now we're going to say, right, there's actually a default route, this time with a different IP address. So that's actually pointing upstream to iOS v1. So iOS v1 is then going to do our onward forwarding. So for now, we don't have a route in the table for 172.16.1.254, but obviously we'll use the default route. So now we're going to ping, and there it goes. So that's a successful ping that's going through. And if we go back and take a look on the ASA, again, use that show xlate command. Here we can see, again, that translation taking place. So 10.0.0.2, that's the IP address attached to server 1. That's the source for those packets that are going through, and we can see all the traffic that's running through there. Okay, so we've made these modifications. We have our network now into the state that we want it. How do we save this? We want to be in a position where the next time around, rather than entering all these commands, again, you'll probably go through your work making various configuration changes. You won't necessarily start from that sort of automated configuration default that we started off with. So if I want to save everything, I'm going to go into my simulation menu, and I have this option here called Extract Configurations. And I'm just going to select that. And it's got console ports open. It's going to close those down because it's going to need to, or has the potential to use those. And off we go. So we can also click on the console tab, and we can see the state of that configuration collection taking place. So we can see it's going through, iterating over the various nodes that it supports, grabbing the configurations, and that's done. So it's now picked up those additional configuration entries that I put in, such as that redistribute static route entry, the ASAV configurations, all of that is picked up, and we're good to go. So if we go back to the design view now, and if I click on one of these nodes, so where have we got the redistribute static, and we take a look at the configuration block. This may be a little harder to see, but I will, let me see if I can pop that up in the editor. Yeah, there we go. So if we take a look in here, and so there's my static route correctly formatted, and here we can see my redistribute static has now gone in. So that's now present in my XRV configuration. And if I take a look on the ASA configuration, again, just pop that up. So there were two entries that we put in, those route entries, the route inside, outside, and there they are. Okay, so those have been collected automatically and included. So this configuration is now ready to go. So if I wanted to, I can now shut that simulation down, press start, and it's going to then bring the system back up exactly in that state that we left it. The only piece that's not going to get picked up is the route entries that are present on the server. So we would need to splice those into the server's configuration manually. So we would have to put in those entries ourselves. So the key piece is that second time. I've done my configuration, I've made my various changes, I've saved it. The second time I want to bring up the simulation, I don't need to press the build initial configurations. Okay, all my entry information is ready to go. All I need to do is press the green play button, and we're ready to go, ready to run again. Okay, one last thing that we want to show is when we've got the simulation live, we can do this live visualization. I don't know how many people have played with this, but this is a slightly different view. So we're actually looking into the network as it's running on those virtual machines right now. So I can then switch the view and say, right, I want to look at the OSPF live state, grab the data, and hopefully you see as that ran, that's now picking up the information about the devices that are actually running OSPF. So we can see the various pieces of information as we point on those various links. We can even see from an OSPF perspective, the dead timers, the hello states, all that information is in there. You know, similarly, if we want to take a look at the BGP, there's not much BGP in here, but again, you know, collect BGP. And yep, there we can see there's a bidirectional communication taking place between XRV1 and XRV2. So as you make modifications, so for example, bringing interface states up and down, again, we can gather all that information and present it here to you. So you have got this as a way of being able to see what is happening inside my network, how it's actually running in my live environment. So we saw the protocol visualizations before. That's before we've actually started up the simulation. This tool then gives you the ability to look inside your live simulation and take a look what's actually happening in there too. Okay. That concludes that section of the of today's webinar. Hopefully that's been useful for you. I just want to highlight that the topology that we've just shown, we're going to be sharing on our GitHub repository, which we've mentioned on past webinars. We will include the links in the notes that will go out to everybody. So if you'd like to grab that topology, download it, play with it, experiment, you know, add your own tweaks and tunes to it, then please obviously do so. It's there for you to use. Okay. Moving on, we're going to do something slightly different. We did an interview with Scott. Scott is based in Australia, so he should be fast asleep right now. Scott's involved in the group Learning at Cisco that some of you may have come across. Certainly, if you are doing certifications or have done certifications, it's Learning at Cisco who's responsible for those certifications. So a few days ago, I recorded this interview with Scott. It is just audio, so we're going to put that on now. Hopefully the audio quality will be reasonable. So welcome to the VIRL webinar. Really for other people who don't know you, because you and I know each other very well, can you describe yourself and what you do here at Cisco?
Well, I've now been at Cisco 7.5 years. The whole time I've been with Learning at Cisco. I originally joined Learning at Cisco as the CCIE proctor. So for some of you out there, I may have been a person that tortured you if you came to Sydney. These days, I am a technical leader within the lab operations team. So my responsibility there involves managing some software development projects for various products and portfolios, including things like Cisco Learning Labs and that same lab delivery software we use for CE as well as getting involved in Cisco modeling labs on the engineering and support manager on the CML side of things. I work with the VIRL team. Obviously, the CML product is a part of the VIRL family, and so we work closely together in regards to delivering those engineering objectives.
Great. For those people who don't know, what is Learning at Cisco? What does it do? What does it cover?
Cisco was formed a number of years ago now. They have quite a broad charter, but they focus on things like certifications and labs deliveries, developing services and products that create a foundation built on performance, accomplishments, and scalable solutions for the different certifications. They look at content development, driving technical competency by creating what they call best-in-class career certification courses and assessment products used by actors, partners, and employers out there. We've now been branching out into other areas. We've now recently released a product called Collaborative Knowledge, which provides best-in-class social collaborative learning platforms in support of the basic Learning Cisco strategy. So we're quite a diverse group, but highly focused around the learning aspects and obviously certifications around that.
If people who are listening to this webinar, if they've gone on, for example, a CCNA or a CCIE training course, is that material from your group then?
On the official curriculum through a certified learning partner, yes, that material gets developed by another part of the Learning at Cisco group, responsible for the content. And then obviously the group that I sit in under lab operations, we're obviously responsible for the testing side of things. So yes, that's all driven through Learning at Cisco.
People also have come across you guys at events like Cisco Live. Can you talk a little bit about what Cisco provides at Cisco Live?
For Cisco Live, we get involved mainly in the certifications space. We deliver a number of technical seminars and our labs in the walk-in self-paced labs, for example, focused on career certifications, the associate level, the professional level, for the different streams. So there's always a high concentration of voice and collaboration, security, especially with the new generation of security, the products coming out. And obviously route switch, that's always one of our key products, always well received for the tech seminars. If you attend Cisco Live, I also suggest you get down to the walk-in self-paced labs area. We always host a number of short, 1-hour based labs. The certification focuses primarily on CCIE. It just gives you a bit of a look and feel of what you can expect for those of you who are thinking about pursuing career certifications in long term.
Great. So just tack a little bit. Very involved with use of VIRL and obviously the Cisco Modeling Labs product. So how's virtualization itself being used in Learning Cisco today, and what does that look going forward? What kind of changes are we likely to see in the future with the Learning Cisco offering?
Cisco is a big supporter of virtualization. We see it as a key building block to scale out our learning offerings. So, for example, you'll see, obviously, things like CCIE routing and switching now has gone across to a fully virtualized model. We'll be moving CCIE service provider soon, and you'll see that running effectively with a VIRL backend. So more and more you'll see both our certification products and our learning products moving across in that space. So we've been a big supporter traditionally. We have a number of software engineers that have worked under me working on things like the Layer 2 switch that hopefully you're all are now familiar with, that it was released recently within the VIRL PE platform. So from our perspective, it's essential for our strategy. So we'll only be investing more in key areas to enable our learning portfolio more so and offer great flexibility and diversity in how we can deliver to meet our future customers' needs.
The hardware elements of examinations are likely to go away or be reduced? It's
focus on hardware. It's more about technology these days. So there will still be an element of hardware within certifications. Obviously, they can abstract away. There's other ways you can test elements of that, whether it's through the written exams or whether it's through other means. But it's more about, with a lot of the career certification, is testing on technologies, and that's basically platform independent. So if you take routing and switching as an example, how well do you know all your internal routing protocols? How well do you know your external routing protocols? And you apply that on our different flavors, whether it be at stages still classic iOS, or in the future they may move it to iOS XE. I mean, that's realistically that's independent of a platform. Obviously, when we try on our tests, we don't want to make it such that you've got to know the intricacies. A lot of days of a CAT 6500, right? You need to know enough, understand the fundamental technology, so you can apply it across all platforms. That's the sort of the level of expertise.
Got it. Okay. So many people listening to this will probably be studying for a Cisco certification, or may have studied for a Cisco certification, be somewhere on that roadmap. I'm curious to hear what you would say best way of using VIRL as a study tool would be.
From my perspective, VIRL is a great study tool. I mean, it's certainly not the only one that's out there. I'd utilise it in a collaborative type fashion. I encourage you to use learning communities that are out there, whether it's a Cisco Learning Network community or any other learning community, and collaborate with your peers. Obviously, when you start dealing with things like classic iOS or iOS XR, if you're studying for service provider, for example, make sure to take the time out to understand the platform. And what I mean by that is obviously in a platform there are some things that you can and can't do. So understand the deficiencies, but certainly understand the full power of it. The time out, make use of the platform and understand the technologies in the sense that, well, how does BGP work? Okay, there's limitations. I can do that on an 8-device topology. I don't need to have a 25-device topology. Build out and then work with colleagues and get them to test it and break it. So get them to create broken tools for you. So that's how. I mean, that's how I learn. So I mean, everyone learns
learning by doing. Yeah.
That's exactly. You got to learn by doing and share your dial files with your colleagues. Encourage interaction with other communities. Obviously, you need to be cognizant you can't break the NDA, but basically the learning experiences and individuals' experience as far as the certification goes. When you get out of the exam, you need to be able to break down what you did well, what you did wrong, and then build on your study plan based upon that. But certainly the VIRL platform is essential for learning. A lot of people now will learn by actually doing that, getting the time on the consoles, and that's what VIRL is all about.
And I've had people who've taken their CCIE, some of whom have been working almost exclusively, I think pretty much exclusively on VIRL, and that's a good testament that people are saying, yep, they've been able to do the various prep that they didn't get through that actual exam.
We're certainly seeing that certainly on the internal mailers where engineers are studying for service provider, and it's been a great tool in that respect. So yes, with the changes coming to service provider, it's a tool of choice moving forward.
Great, Scott. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us and share your thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to hand over now to the section we're just going to take a look at on new virtual machine images, and then we're going to hand over to Valerie, who's going to give us a recap of what's coming up, what you can expect to see in a couple of weeks at Cisco Live. Okay, so we have posted new virtual machine images for ASA, CSR 1000V, and iOS XRV. The link at the top there will give you the instructions. If you haven't already seen them, that's where you can find the step-by-step as to how you can download each one of those virtual machine images. So if you're an existing VIRL user and you've got a system already up and running, there are a series of steps that you can run to pull down those existing images, and they will replace your current versions. Okay, so if you have ASAV 931, if you run through that routine, it's going to remove the 931 and replace it with your brand spanking new 941 image. These images, or certainly the CSR1KV and the XRV, are fairly large. Be patient. Depends obviously how close you are to the various servers and how much bandwidth you've got, but it can take some time to actually go through. So once you've got your VIRL server up and running, there is a web UI that you can run through to pull this down. So if you log into the user workspace management page as UWM admin, okay, not as guest, as UWM admin, click on the VIRL software panel, give it a moment, and it's going to then check with the sort masters and say, there are new versions of the images available. So you'll be presented with a menu like this. You can then see they're running. So in this example, we have 3.14 installed, 5.30 installed. We already have the 9.41.200 installed, but it's indicating to us that there's a 3.15 and a 5.31 image. So all I need to do is click install. Yes, check the tick boxes here. Press start installation. Let the system do its work, and it will then go off, grab those new versions of code, download, and install. And then they're there for you to use and enjoy. Just bear in mind, as I said, that certainly with the CSR 1000V, it's about 1.3 gigs. It can certainly take some time to download. All right, we're going to hand over to Valerie, who's going to run us through what you can expect to see if you're coming to San Diego in the next, couple of weeks' time. Valerie. Okay, looks like we've got some audio problems there. I'm going to carry on.
I think I was... Hey, Joe. Sorry, I was muted. My bad. Let me restart. Hey, everyone. So, quick announcement about Cisco Live San Diego that's coming up in June 7th through 11th. As many of you know, Cisco Live is one of the biggest events for IT professionals to learn about interesting products and tools, and you can get training for your career at the event. If you have not registered, the Explorer Pass is only $49 US, and you can go to World of Solutions and through the DevNet Zone with that pass. The DevNet Zone is where VIRL will have a big presence this year. So a quick rundown of our schedule, so you know where to find us. Our main location will be in the DevNet Zone, and we have a dedicated VIRL booth, as well as and be in a learning labs area throughout the whole week. We have a 4-hour tutorial on Sunday and a theater session on Monday. Let's see. If that's not enough, we also host mini workshops on Tuesday. The workshops will be 30 minutes with a small group, and you get to do 3 cool things with VIRL. We will post this full schedule on our community forum and through our social media platforms. If you're going to Cisco Live, make sure you drop by to say hi, and we have some pretty neat giveaways, and there is lots to do with VIRL at the event. More importantly, we are hosting our first ever user meetup during the week of Cisco Live. It will be on June 9th, Tuesday night, from 5:30 to 7 p.m. in the DevNet Zone Theater. We want to provide an opportunity for all of you to interact with our developer team, as well as talk to other VIRL users about what they're doing with VIRL. We welcome feedbacks, and we will provide snacks and drinks and a free VIRL t-shirt for all of you that stays till the end. We have a sign-up link, which I will actually put in the chat section right now. Make sure to RSVP so we know that you're coming. And bring any of your friends or colleagues if they want to. Joe, I will now hand it back to you for additional comments and for the rest of the Q&A.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so we're almost at the top of the hour. I'm just going to talk quickly with our panel team. So Bryan, Ed, Ralph, Tom, who've all been fielding questions while we've been talking. Guys, any particular questions that are coming up often that are worth sort of running through on the audio here? I know that there were people asking about what's the latest OVA version. So there is a package version which is 09250. So that is the current OVA that's available If you want to, there is the self-service download version, but the content is the same as we've been shipping. So if you take a look at the various package levels, it's exactly the same as we've been shipping. So you've got 0, 10, 14, 20. That's the core VIRL code. The AutoNetKit versions are there. That's the latest version. New version of VIRL coming probably towards the end of June. We have more goodies, and certainly we will be showing new features, new capabilities at Cisco Live. So if you're there, you're able to drop by, come and see some of the new bits and pieces that you can expect to see in forthcoming VIRL releases. Panel team, any particular questions, anything that people want to highlight?
Questions all over the place, I guess. The only thing that I want to highlight is that there is only little influence from the VIRL team. What is going into the individual VMs? That's always something that comes up in terms of, okay, when does feature XYZ come into the box, or when will this be available, and etc. So that is only something that we can marginally influence. And if you have a contact within Cisco, then I would highly recommend to talk to those people that they, also leverage their influence to the BU that actually produces these VMs.
Yeah, so just to pick up on that point in particular, so the NXOS, I know a lot of people are very, very interested in the NXOS V virtual machine and would like to see more capabilities being added into that. If you do have contacts through your account team, please, please, please flag that to your account team. They can then escalate that back to the engineering team who are responsible for it and put the pressure on them to enable more features, more functionality. We know the situation, we feel your pain, but we need lots of people jumping up and down and make as much noise, yell, scream, and shout at your account team to say, this is important, we want this capability, we need this functionality, make it happen. It does help, really, it does. So, yeah, please go beat up your account team. There you go. It's not often you get told to go and beat up your account team, but please beat up your account team. Anything else, gentlemen? Okay. We're going to wrap up there. I'd like to thank everybody for helping, all the guys on the panel team, Valerie for helping coordinate bits and pieces and running through the various sections today. As I mentioned earlier, the topology that we used in the demonstration today that Tom did the great walkthrough, we're going to be posting that in our Git repo. So that's available from GitHub for you to grab, download, play with. And of course, we welcome contributions from you. So if you've got topologies that are interesting, that are useful, that you think would be valuable to other people, we'd love to host those, make those available to the rest of the community too. Let us know. You can certainly, if you're comfortable with Git, you can do a fork request, and then you can do a pull request, and we can then pull that back in, and then people then can pick up your topologies and share that with other people. And with that, I'd like to thank you all once again for your time. Hopefully this has been useful. Give us feedback, give us comments, what you liked. We apologize again about the the audio problems we had that interview with Scott. We will try and do better. But also, what are the topics that you would like to see next time round? What would you like us to try and cover, whether that is actually in the WebEx session like this, or whether there's particular topics that we could try and cover through one of our video tutorials. Okay. Thank you all very much once again. Enjoy the rest of your day, and for those people who are coming to Cisco Live, do stop by, come and say hi to the team. We'd love to talk to you, hear about what you're doing with VIRL. Hopefully catch people on the next VIRL webinar, which will be advertised soon. Thank you all very much.